City Church family, I am so excited to be here today with our friend Lawton, and we wanted to take a little bit of time and hear your story, where you come from and how you came to know Christ. So where do we start with this?
Well, thank you, Pastor. I feel honored to be asked to be here. I was so excited with the opportunity, so thank you for that.
Yeah, of course.
That's a big question for sure. Salvation, we all know, is like the biggest decision, the biggest opportunity and gift that can happen to any of us in life. Where do we begin?
I mean, your story starts in childhood for sure, right?
Yeah.
Or does it?
It does. It's interesting because I met a brother I had this week, but I don't want to start there. When I was as young as I can remember, is 4 or 5. I can actually remember being 4 and 5.
Okay.
I have, vivid memories of my mother and my father, and they're random at times, but they carry a lot of weight and bring back a lot of emotion that come with those memories. But my father, when I was 5, murdered my mother in cold blood. There's so much that I've learned this very week. I can feel my ears getting red because it's a lot to think about. But yeah, when I was 5, I went to school. And my mother dropped me off. I remember it was a Corvette, and I had my red lunchbox, and she never came back to pick me up. Very emotional day that I still remember very vividly, because no 5-year-old wants to lose their mother. Fast forward from there, my father's locked in prison. I still don't necessarily understand what has happened. So as a teenager, I was extremely angry.
Now, just real quick, you're as a child before the incident or the crime, you actually, were you around church, in church? Were they attending church?
Yeah, so forgive me. It's a lot to remember, so I jump around a lot.
That's okay. I just curious about, like, because that obviously has an impact on you.
I found out so much new information, so that's why it's a lot to piece together.
Okay.
This week specifically, I met my older brother yesterday for the second time in my life.
Okay.
So to answer your question, no, I was not in church as a youngling.
So they didn't attend. Your mom and dad weren't attending. So
my mother went to church.
Okay.
With my grandmother.
Okay.
And she was about 14 in youth. And I found out recently that she was sexually assaulted by her youth pastor.
Oh man.
And I think that's what if you look at, you can see pictures of my mother as a young girl in the transition, and you can see the fruit change almost. It's like she started wearing makeup and started worrying about how she looks. And you could literally see that point in her life where she transitioned into more of a sexuality worry almost. Mm-hmm. So it was around 14, there was a scandal there. And that started that. Well, my father who was older than my grandfather, met my mother through a vacuum cleaning shop. She was hired at 15, 16, very young, and they engaged in a relationship. So my mother, all this happening's under 18, very naive. We all know this. We have children. Yeah. We know her mind was not developed enough to handle any of this. Mm-hmm. She gets pregnant. They get married. And she has me at 17. Mm. So, and then 5 years later, there's so much that goes into that story, but no, they were not attending church as a couple, but my mother did attend church as a child.
Okay.
But the church is where
there was a lot of hurt. Yeah, and rightfully so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right.
And I just discovered this within the last few months.
Yeah.
So I haven't I've always kind of compartmentalized that part in my life and kind of shoved it away, I think, as a natural defense of like, I don't want to deal with this.
Sure.
Because it's strong, vivid, emotional memories. But the Holy Spirit's worked to me a lot in the last 20 years for sure. But to answer your question, no, I didn't go to church as a young boy. I didn't go to church as a teenager. Maybe twice a year, Easter and Christmas,
Sure.
the typical holidays everyone goes to church. I would go with my grandmother, the same grandmother that raised my mother, and she would always take us to church. She would always pray over me, speak life into me. was such a pivotal. Like I used to tell guys in the military, like, you got a praying grandma, don't you?
Yeah.
Everyone did.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, the praying grandmas are dying out. Time to pick up the torch, and you be the praying grandma, even though you're not a woman. Like, it's time for you to pick up the torch, right? I'll have some responsibility. Yeah. She did that for me. She spoke life into me. She helped change the course of my life in many ways she may not even understand today.
So you say you have an older brother, so this would have been your dad's previous life.
There's so much to this, yeah. My dad was married 4 times. I found that out yesterday.
Okay.
Married 4 times. I have an older sibling. He was married. My older brother's 23 years older than me, so he's 53.
Oh, wow.
My father was older than my grandfather, so he would be almost 80. My grandfather's 76. Weird dynamic, right? But my mother's young, naive. They get married. That was his 4th marriage. I found out yesterday that he had a repeated egotistical, prideful, just his behavioral patterns were the same from his 1st marriage to his 4th. Mm-hmm. And when my older brother was describing this, I could see it. I was like, this man never knew Jesus. Mm-hmm. Now I was glad and rejoiced in the fact he knew Jesus before he died.
Okay.
But through his tenure in life, he was always worried about the world, business, sales, eye candy. My mom was nothing more, nothing less than the new thing on his hip, per se. I couldn't really understand why he would go for someone so young. Not
so
sure.
You talk about your grandmother and your grandfather. You were raised by them,
Yeah, so I'll back up. I'm jumping all over the place. My mother dies when I'm 5. My grandfather takes me in.
Okay.
Takes me and my sister in because we were about 5 minutes from his house. We had just moved from Dublin, Georgia to Augusta because he had a business in Augusta, or he had a business in Dublin and Augusta. They both went under, so he moved us down here. So we're about 5 minutes from my grandfather. That day, he took my mother to the river and hit her over the head with a paddle and drowned her. My grandfather's the one that picked me up from school. So his burgundy truck rolls up, picks me up. I have no idea. He's you could see he's shell-shocked. I remember him being very distraught. Takes me home. Everyone's crying. And then it's like, okay, what's going to happen with the kids? There's 4 of us. My youngest brother, Chris, is in diapers. And then Dylan is 3. Okay. And then it's my 4-year-old sister and me at 5. And she doesn't remember any of this.
So there's 4 of you.
There's 4 of us.
Wow.
So my grandfather takes 2 of us, and the 2, we were already enrolled in school in Richmond Hill, so it made sense for him to take the older 2, and he was 55. So it was a lot. I don't think either of them necessarily felt equipped to take on all 4 of us, I'm assuming, because I have 4 children. I was like, dang, I would really want all my children to be together, right? That was like one of the hardest things is I only saw Dylan and Chris maybe once, twice a year on the normal.
Wow.
How far away did they live?
They lived in Savannah, so about an hour, because I lived at the end of Richmond Hill.
Oh, okay.
And we wouldn't come to Savannah. Savannah was Sam's Club.
Yeah.
That was all I knew it as. Like, I didn't spend any time in Savannah.
And I mean, I think too, Savannah has changed a lot over the years where like Richmond Hill and Savannah were very separate at some point,
Very separate.
Especially with the drive and everything. And I don't know, just a lot has changed now to where it's not as separate now, but I can imagine.
So you went through high school?
I went through high school very angry, a ball of anger.
Yeah.
And through that, with that conversation I shared with my brother, I understand that now. What's crazy is I could see myself in my dad. I could make the connections to my behavior of the past to my father's.
Okay.
It broke my heart a little bit. Like he never had that life-changing encounter. Mm-hmm. So his destructive behavior continued until he destroyed himself.
What, if I could interject, like what advice would you give to young men who deal with rage and anger right now?
Anger was the one thing I've always struggled with the most. Like the quick anger, the rage. Nothing could help me get through that like Jesus could. I could not really learn to control it per se. I played football because I enjoyed hitting people, right? Not the best reason to play, but it was fun.
It probably made you good at
It
football.
just made me not worry about things. I enjoyed being in that environment. The brutalness that comes from it was enjoyable. Because I was working through the dynamic of how to deal with anger, and I had no real help with it. My grandfather helped to a degree, but I was a punk teenager that didn't want to listen.
Yeah. I mean, but think about how much more healthy of an outlet that is than literally just pummeling someone in the hallway at school. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh, yeah.
sure, like that was your motivation for football, but football being out, like sports being an outlet for that. But so it sounds to me like you're saying like just complete surrender to Jesus
100%.
is what it takes, which is hard to do until you just literally.
So
put yourself in
where
place.
where in here did things begin to change? You grow up with granddad. He's not living for the Lord. You're not living for the Lord. You're dealing with anger, playing football. What's the next milestone in here?
I want to give honor to my grandfather. He did
Yeah.
great man.
Yeah. Oh, and I've heard you say this many times.
Great man.
Not anything.
He
not
was a
anything.
deacon
Yeah.
before all this happened.
Oh, okay.
He's
I didn't know
never
that.
dealt with it. So if he saw this, he's never really recovered from the loss of his daughter.
And how?
No clue.
No
how
one
you-
can blame him.
So he still gets really, really angry
Of
over it.
course.
Yeah.
So a lot to work through there. He would be upset if he knew I met my brother yesterday, for sure. He'd feel betrayed.
Okay.
Um,
But you love him.
oh, dearly,
Yeah. Yeah. I've heard you talk nothing but good about him.
for sure. He did a great job raising me, I feel like. Was very hard on me. It started with a youth pastor. Funny enough. Jonathan Cross at Coastal. I grew up going to Coastal Cathedral, where that's where my mother had this encounter with the youth pastor that's never owned up to it. My brother tried to track him down. It's been too long, and nothing will ever come from that. But I grew up going to Coastal. When I got a truck and started driving, I started going to Coastal Cathedral, got plugged into the youth. Wasn't probably there for the right reasons, but Jonathan Cross was my youth pastor that helped me have radical change in my life and kind of helped just guide me and feel like a spiritual father. Everyone, like I had a father, but I didn't have a spiritual father. And Jonathan Cross was that for me. He helped steer me, helped me learn who Jesus really was, helped me have a real relationship with him, helped me understand past just the normalcy of going to church, checking a box and leaving, just what that really looked like.
Is there a service, a moment, a retreat? Is there a time you'd go like this was like where stuff started to pivot and really change?
We went to a retreat called Forward, which is big in, I don't know what you call that, Church of God.
Yeah.
Big in Church of God Forward in Atlanta. And I remember I have a picture of me flexing like this, and just having the time of my life, but having a real radical encounter with Jesus the entire time, and just breaking chains, feeling like it felt like I'd finally found what I was missing, and I was able to crucify a lot of my anger and kind of come out of that to a certain degree. Like I still had so many things to work through,
Yeah.
right? Like had a serious relationship, yes, but like we all know, that doesn't just snap your fingers and you're just better, right?
But you certainly at that point were identifying as a
100%.
Christian, and
I think I would, if you would ask me, I've never thought about this, it's a great question. If you'd asked me at 10 years old, I probably would have said I believe.
okay,
Because I knew of God, but I wasn't in relationship with God, like many of us
sure,
in the world. I knew of him, but didn't know what it really felt like to have his love and affection, and to have that father that we're all looking for. I never looked at my grandfather, though, or my grandmother as my mother or father. I didn't feel like anyone ever took that role, right? Because I remember them vividly. So you're always kind of wanting that love that I was lacking, right? So it is, as a teenager, it felt really good when that encounter happened, because I felt more full of life, more loved than I probably had ever felt in my life. And that helped me work through a lot of the anger.
what? So how old were you then?
15.
15. So how did the next few years play out for you?
The next few years, I got really close to Dylan. I got my
Okay.
driver's license He lived in Savannah, and we started just running the streets together. Like, I'd pick him up. He was 13, I was 16, and we got so close. And I spent every weekend with him.
This is your brother.
My brother.
Yeah,
yes,
Dylan. Yeah.
The third out of four. I still had so many issues, though.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things I saw when my brother was describing my dad. He was a womanizer. Like, it was simple. He was married 4 times, and he could never stay content. Like, he never stay in the bounds of his marriage. I saw it myself. I was like, that's me when I was young. And that's where my grandma spoke life into me. Like, I was a reckless teenager who had testosterone and hormones and didn't know where to direct them. I had no one guiding me in that department. The birds and the bees conversation I needed to have, and grandma was the one that had it with me. And so I'm running around with Dylan. I'm chasing girls. I was in youth chasing girls at 16, like most young boys are. And then grandma said something that was pivotal for my life. She said, you can't treat girls like you treat clothes. They're not meant to try on daily.
That's good. Go grandma.
And that really hit me. Like, that hurt.
Yeah.
Because grandma's somebody I looked up to.
Yeah.
And she called me out on my crap.
That's good.
And I've forever been grateful for that, because
That's
the
good.
next woman to walk into my life was my wife, which it's just insane. Because if she had not had the conversation, Lauren, I've been married to for 11 years on Friday, would have been potentially just another girl that I was chasing down.
How did you navigate that with Lauren differently than before?
And how old were you?
I swung the pendulum complete opposite and went to the extreme.
Okay.
A lot of people do, yeah.
Yeah. I snapped out of that and realized I was making tons of mistakes. And my next date, so I went to Lauren's father. Lauren walked in youth one night.
Good move.
She walked in youth. I'm sitting on the couch with Dylan. And I said, oh man, she's beautiful.
She is. She's beautiful.
And Dylan's like, no. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, absolutely not. I was like, what? And I don't think we've never hashed it out completely. But I think he knew who I was and knew what I was about. And I'm glad he said that, because now I can appreciate that. Lauren was a pastor's daughter who had her head screwed on right. And I was that typical teenage boy that was going to mess that all up.
Right.
So Dylan's like, absolutely not. I was like, whatever. I don't care what you have to say. You're my younger brother, right? So I go to her dad. I ask him, can I take your daughter on a date? 'Cause she's 2.5 years younger than me. I'm 16. She's 14. Right?
Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
he's like, yeah, that'd be fine. And so we go to Bonefish Grill, have a date. They drop her off. And she sits down on the table, and I go the complete opposite way. I say, hey, I've dated a lot of girls already. I was not 16. I'm getting this confused. I was 18. She was 16.
Okay.
That's much
makes a
better.
little more
That makes a
I
little
was
bit more
18,
sense.
she was
but
16. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm getting my timelines all messed
That's
up.
all
Messed,
good.
messed up. I was 18. She was 16. She gets dropped off, and because I just graduated high school, and I said, hey, if you're not looking for something serious, this is like first couple of things that came out of my mouth.
Yeah.
I'm like, nah, hey, how you doing? we don't need to further this.
Yeah.
And she always says, like, came off so strong our first date.
Yeah.
Because the pendulum swung. It swung the complete opposite direction because grandma spoke life into me, and I realized, like, I'm doing all this wrong. I just don't know I don't know how to do this thing, But then, like, I was on a mission, like, I just need to find a wife. I was 18 years old. But now I'm like, okay, Paul talks about burning passion. Like, now I understand. I didn't understand then, but I can understand. I knew something in me knew I needed a wife, and I needed to get out of what I was, like, the parameters of how I was living. And that was Lauren. Granted, me and Lauren got married extremely quickly, had a baby extremely quickly.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it kind of falls into who I was at the timeline.
Okay.
Jim asked my dad when we were 18 if we could get married. And my dad said, nope,
Not a chance.
don't even talk about it for 2 years. And I went off 800 miles away to college. And then 2
Wow.
years later, he talked about it and we got engaged. Yeah. So kind of similar, like, young, like, I'm ready to get married.
Yeah.
Well,
That's another story for another day.
that's a beautiful story. I own my story. I love it. I think it's beautiful. It's exactly like, I look at my 10-year-old and say, you started all of this. Lauren doesn't necessarily when I say that, but you have to know my heart when I say that.
Yeah.
Right? I got Lauren pregnant before I got married.
Okay.
Right. So again, I was still being crazy Lawton and doing things I necessarily shouldn't have been doing. But I knew in the moment, we're talking about this the other night, actually. I told Lauren, again, my wording's not the best, but I was like, when you told me you were pregnant, I knew exactly what I needed to do, how I needed to do it, when I needed to do it.
Yeah.
And that's not me saying I have to marry you. That's me saying I have a responsibility to you.
Yeah.
And I already was in love with you. So it just collapsed time, sped things up. I was ready. More ready than most 18, 19-year-olds old. You know, I went to work 7 hours, 7 days a week, 12-hour shifts, ready to take on the responsibility. Like, I wasn't the guy that's going to be fickle and run away. That was for my grandpa. Like, that was like grandpa that, like, when she told me that, and I remember we were standing in her closet in her bedroom. All I could think about was, granddaddy would say this. Because he always kept saying, play fire, you're going to get burnt.
Yeah.
He kept saying that. Because he knew I was being an idiot. But it's just God's timing. Like, grandma saying that, Lauren coming to my life, things laying out the way they did. Now we've been married 11 years.
That's awesome.
You know,
So you got
four kids, 11 years married,
four beautiful kids.
That's awesome.
So you got married and then you enlisted.
I enlisted. I did.
Yeah.
We were 19 and 17 when we got married.
Okay.
I joined the Air Force because it's like, what do I do with my life? I'm working 84 hours a week, and this is not sustainable. We're bouncing between my grandparents and her grandparents, and I don't really want to listen to, you have your own family. You're like, I respect you, but I really want to run, like, not run, but like, I want to build my own dichotomy of what our family looks like.
Yeah, it's called leave and cleave, and you're supposed to be doing it on your own. That's the way God made it.
100%.
So, yeah.
So joined the Air Force. That was hard. It was good though.
Were you deployed at all or immediately or anything? Or were you and Lauren always able to be together?
Basic training was difficult. That was only 2 months, but Lauren being so young with a fresh baby, she moved up with my aunt in Augusta just to get some space from everybody, to kind of do her own thing. Then she flew by herself with a baby in tow. I think she might have been 18 at the time. Flew to my basic training graduation. We got to see each other, got to spend the weekend with each other. And then I went to AIT for 3-4 months, and then she finally joined me there. And then we finished that out. And then I TDY'd and deployed in my time in the Air Force. And I spent time away from her, but it conditioned us to be able to handle that.
So where all were you stationed?
Stationed in Texas, Biloxi, Mississippi, Wichita Falls, Texas. This is reaching the pits of my memory. I spent most of my time in Pensacola, Florida. Okay. The Panhandle, which my experience at Forward did not. My zeal from that didn't last. Okay. If we're just being honest, right? Yeah. That version of Lawton died again, and I was not leading my family well in the beginning of my marriage. I'd say the first half of my marriage, I was still struggling with a ton of sin. I still struggle with sin, sure, but not the depravity of what I was dealing with when I was 20 to 25. Right. So we're moving around. We get to Pensacola, and we come to a pinnacle point in our marriage where we almost got divorced. I almost left Lauren for another woman about 5 years into our marriage. Again, I could see my father. This is what was nuts, is I could see my father when my brother was describing him, which is a really hard thing to say. That's really like, again, my father killed my mother, right? And I would never lay a harm. Like, I've dealt with anger, but I don't want to hurt anybody, right? Sure. 5 years into my marriage, I'm thinking about leaving my wife. I've got 2 kids. And then I get deployed. Then we have a miscarriage, all within a year. Everything within 1 year. And I remember being in the desert in Afghanistan, begging Lauren not to leave me. Like, I want to work it out, but I'm half the world away. Snap 2 finally. I was like, no, I don't actually. This is not what I want. I'm dumb. And then gracefully, she agreed to work through things. On top of that, we lose a child 12 weeks in. Then I had to scoop out of the toilet. So like, it just, we really walked, like, there's that 1 year in our marriage, we really walked through the fire. And then the first 5 years of marriage, I can see all my mistakes leading up to that, and just not leading my own life well. So I definitely couldn't lead my family well. So I feel like I had a real serious zeal at 15, 16, and it kind of just all fell off.
What could have made that last, if anything, that you can think of in hindsight?
Jonathan Cross was huge in my life at getting me saved. But what does being a disciple mean? Like the actually walking out of the faith, right? Like I got saved, then what? I should have been reading and praying and growing in my walk with the Lord, but I wasn't. And when I moved away in the military, I mean, I should have been strong enough in my faith to encourage my own culture, but I just became part of the world's culture. And I didn't open a Bible for years. I didn't pray for years. I embraced wholeheartedly the culture that is the military.
What you're going through all these things, you see that there are mistakes, you're begging for grace and forgiveness, you're walking through a hard time. What was it that was the moment where you're like, all right, like this has to stop? And I know the answer. The answer is fellowship. The answer is the word. The answer is, community with believers. Like, where did all that shift? Because, you only miss church now if you're on a work or family trip.
Lauren, the whole time, was faithful to me and gave me so much grace. Always begged me to go to church. But I didn't really listen. I was egotistical, prideful, again, like my father, and I do it my own way. So she just kept working on me, and pretty much it was an ultimatum when I came back, like, hey, like, you've got to change who you are or we're done. So at that point I would have lost Lauren and my 2 kids. And I was like, well, that's a wake-up call. So we joined a church in Florida that were really, like, that was the first 15 and 16, I had a zeal of a child. Around 25, I had a zeal of a man. And there was a totally different burning passion. It was more of I want to really understand who God is, the most that I can.
Certainly.
So when I joined Pace Assembly, that was my first season in life of really getting into the walk with Christ, the growing in the Word, the praying, the fellowship, Pastor, that church was huge. And Pastor took time out of his day one day and met with me privately and just poured into me. And from then on, I was totally bought in because awesome. he was a shepherd of 450 on a Sunday, if not more. And he took an hour out of his day and really, really just met me man to man and poured into me and never stopped doing that. And that's what I needed. Like, I was so thankful God put me on that church. I can't remember how I ended up there, but I grew there tremendously.
Yeah. And to your point about, you were saying, like, you weren't reading your Bible, praying, like, for some people, that can be just like going through the motions. But when you really break it down, those are the ways of daily habits where the transformation takes place. And we were talking about that with someone else on their testimony podcast, that it's like in the daily grind of those daily habits that you begin to see the fruit begin to grow. So that's so important to maintain that, in and out of every season. So
100%.
So then you had 2 more kids.
2 more kids.
Y'all figured it out. And
life got a little easier.
Yeah.
In that way, like, I wouldn't say life's ever easy per se, depending on what you're doing, but
was there a restoration of joy in there, or?
Oh, so much joy.
Yeah.
I was at a Y in the road in my life that would have changed me forever. I don't know how I would have recovered that. In hindsight, looking back, I seriously don't know how I would have recovered from any of the bad decisions I was making. I'd be a totally different man than I am today.
Yeah.
If I didn't have the grace of Jesus and the grace of my wife, and the mercy they both give me in that situation. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and then to look at your kids and go, I'm responsible to them. And, like, they make my life worth living, and worth the family dynamic.
Absolutely. The all the stuff that you're having to deal with, talking about, oh, that's my dad, what I'm saying? I see that. You're doing all this work that your kids won't connect with. They won't understand it. To me, I tell guys who are selfish and arrogant and running around on their wives and then having a divorce, talking about divorce. One of the things I consistently say is if you can't get your wild desires under control, then you will watch your son wrestle to try to get his wild desires under control. At some point, a man does it and he sets his child forward. His child will have an easier time. But growing up in the midst of all of that, somebody has to break that. I don't like the term generational curse. I think it has more to do with the fact that the enemy doesn't die. He's going to be cast into the lake of fire. He has time on his side. He knows how to press our buttons. And so we have to do the work to say, no, you know what? Those buttons don't work on my family anymore. I appreciate the fact that they did before, but they don't anymore. And I'm drawing a line in the sand. And then all those feelings, all those emotions, all that hurt, all that temptation are things that by the grace of God, our kids then go, it's all foreign to them. It's like, what are you talking about? I've never felt that. I've never known that. I've never wondered what it would be like to have a dad tell me he was proud of me or loved me or, you know what I'm saying? Like you break all of those things by doing that work. You end up out of the military. And I want to kind of just talk real quick. I mean, you've taken your faith and you've really seemed to have taken your love for not just your immediate family, but your brother and your extended family. And you've created something that right now is just at its earliest stages, trying to build a business around some of these ideas. You want to talk about that for a moment?
Yeah, it's
the legacy that you're trying to build.
The mission you're talking about is what I call like the mission, the vision for my life.
Yeah.
As far as it really hit me yesterday. My brother described my dad. I was like, I'm him. I literally can see myself in him. And I was able to hug my brother. I was able to smile at my brother. And I hated him for 20 years. Like I hated my dad. I rejoiced when he died. So much anger inside of me.
Yeah.
But through my relationship with Christ, like I couldn't believe I was hugging my brother, and because I looked at my brother as my dad, like they were connected in my mind. So I've been able to disassociate the two, heal there, and through all of that, I say all that to say this: everything I'm doing right now, I would not be where I am. I'd probably be following my dad's footsteps, running amok. I would have ended up with another woman and another woman and another woman doing the same crap he was doing, had it not been for Jesus. And that growing, that sanctification. And I do have 2 more kids because of it. Like I was at a huge fork in the road where I could have just said, hey, no, I'm done. I'm going to live for myself and I'm going to live this life any way I want to. And then go make tons of money and go chase women and all the crap my dad did. He was a crook. He did all sorts of bad stuff. Mm-hmm. But I'm forever going to be eternally grateful that I chose the other way. And now I see the fruit of that, because that would have led to self-destruction. And to get back to your question, Pastor, now I'm out of the Air Force. I do have 4 beautiful kids. I always joke I'm negotiating for another, but Lauren will love that. Mm-hmm. I run a real estate company, an investment group here in Savannah. It's blown up. All glory to God. Everything we do, I get the opportunity to meet so many good people. It's so much fun and exciting I'm selling a house today. So I'll get to meet, right after this, I'll get to meet the buyer. And a lot of times it's a husband and a wife and kids. And it's so satisfying. I'm just so thankful to God, because to go from where I was in the Air Force, kicking around rocks, thinking my wife's going to divorce me, in a funk, like depression, I don't know.
Yeah.
But just fighting demons that I had no idea what I was doing to where I am today, all glory to God.
Let me ask you a question that might be a little backtrack real quick. In all of this, where did baptism take place? Have you been baptized?
I got baptized when I was a teenager. Mm-hmm. My brain wants to go into a theological. I don't want to go there. I'm trying to avoid it.
That's all right.
But I got baptized as a teenager. I have not been unless I'm forgetting. I haven't been rebaptized. I'm trying to make
Well,
sure I don't misspeak.
baptism is a public confession of what God's done in your life. And the only reason I ever, if somebody goes, hey, I got baptized when I was younger, I want to get baptized. The only reason I ever encourage somebody to do, or even, would say, hey, yeah, let's do that, is if they would go, I really didn't understand what I was doing. I just was caught up in it, I believed in God, but I didn't understand it. Now I have a firm grasp on it and I want the world to know. But I was just curious in there where that is. So separate question. And I know we got to wrap up, but I just want to say, so this is, I'm going to tell you something, the way I heard it. And one of the first times you and I ever met, and maybe you'll go, I don't remember saying it that way, but this is how I heard it, and it really stuck with me. You kind of gave me the overview of your story about your dad and your mom and having grown up, and you said that you had a mission to redefine what it meant to be a Chancey, and that that your goal is to bring some honor back to that in your own life for your kids. And, that's super powerful to me. It's the same way. I mean, I don't have the story you have. It's not like, my mom and dad, if they're watching this, they're great. I feel the weight of continuing to add to that legacy of adding to what it means to be a Simpson, so that my kids can carry that forward. And I think that that's huge. When Moses encountered God was seemingly hesitant to give him a name because names have so much power to box people in or to set them free. And I just want to say, the work that you have done, and I believe you'll continue to do, will prevent that from being something that boxes your kids in, your nieces and nephews in. You guys are doing something that's going to help to enable that name to bring freedom to them and to your grandkids and for generations forward. So
thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
I saw that in my older brother yesterday. He wanted his father's love so bad he was willing to go to prison with him. And it broke my heart a little bit. And when me and Dylan left, I said, I don't have any ill will towards him. He just wanted his dad. And he would do anything for, but my dad would have left my older brother high and dry because he was just not a good person.
Yeah.
He lived solely for himself. And I was like, I can relate to you. Human to human, I don't believe you have any ill will towards me at 53.
Yeah.
I think your dad literally left you high and dry just like he did me. And we're same.
Yeah. And, as much as any of the fathers out there who are good can try, we still don't measure up to the Heavenly Father. And
100%.
And that's why we got to keep pointing people there. So
I have a question.
Yeah.
Maybe to bring it full circle to close. Lawton, what would you say that you need, and also by proximity, people in Christian community, what do people need to do when they are burnt out and tired and the zeal is gone? Because where you use the word zeal, so the zeal at 15 was different than zeal at 25. We go through seasons of life, all of us do, nobody's exempt, where you're tired, you're burnt out, and you just don't want to show up or whatever. What advice do you give to believers who experience those seasons?
That's a great question. I think when you don't want to show up is exactly when you need to show up. When you're being tested and you don't, like you were preaching on this Sunday, I don't want to go to the beach. That's exactly when you need to be there. And every time I've done that in my own life, it's like, I don't feel like going. That's exactly when something hits me right between the eyes, and I needed to hear that spiritually.
yeah.
I don't understand how I wasn't getting through life successfully without, like we're talking about our days blend together. I literally look at my week, Wednesday, Sunday. Now it's like, Wednesday's youth, Sunday's church. Those are my like cardinal directions.
Yeah.
Life, like we were jumping in the armor of God. You can't get through life. I really don't believe you can get through life successfully without Jesus in your corner and putting on the armor of God daily, because there's just so much to it. And how do you have joy in that kind of lifestyle? For me, the zeal continues now because I've got a mission, clear mission and vision. I'm going to lead my family. And I've got to lead my own life, or I'm a hypocrite. And that's the number one reason kids turn away from the faith at 18.
Right.
I've got 4 children. So I've got a responsibility to my wife and my kids. And if my wife is, don't get me wrong, like we pick each other up all the time, but if she's down in the dumps, I've got to be the best version of myself to lead.
Yeah.
And there's been times where I've been down in the dumps. She's done the same for me. But to continue your zeal, you've got to be reading, praying. And I love the promise, the community group for me. City Church has been, like you said, seasons. It's been a totally different kind of growth in my life. The reading and praying and breaking bread together, and the promise from God after that says he will add numbers. He will add people to the group.
Yeah.
I hold on to that so hard, so much so, because I've seen it being here at City Church, where you may not compound in the thousands, but your community is going to grow in quality, you know, and it may be one person at a time.
Right.
Praise God.
But you stay faithful to that, and I've seen that here, as you stay faithful to reading and praying and breaking bread together, let God do the rest. Just staying faithful goes so far in your zeal.
Good.
Yeah. That's good. All right. Well, thanks for taking time to tell us your story. And if you're watching this right now and you want to get to know Lawton, he'd love to connect with you. I'm sure you'll see him around the church and in the lobby, him and his beautiful, amazing family. So just go introduce yourself and maybe invite him or his family out to a meal or a cup of coffee. They're always looking to meet new people. You know, the scripture says that the enemy is defeated by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. And we just want to continue to share our story because the blood's already been shed, and we want to see the enemy defeated in our world. Thank you guys for checking this out.
Thank you, Pastor.
Yeah.